Hey guys, Fish from Beyond. Here we are with my League Start plans for 3.28 Mirage. I haven't made this is my first League Starter video, but this is something I've always League started for the past couple leagues now, and it's always been Sunder through the campaign, going into Boneshatter, and then Boneshatter going to Double Strike. The reason we transitioned to Double Strike is just I don't like the Boneshatter ramp up time, but that's a preference. And what we leverage is going into Impale. So it's an Impale Boneshatter build. Important caveat of this build is do not follow it if you are uncomfortable of using trade for these items function in the POB. So, but for the people that are unfamiliar with that and are willing to learn, I will show you. So we'll talk about that part first because it's the most important part of this build. I like to leverage basic jewels because in terms of point to power on your tree, it's very hard to beat a basic jewel. So how do you go about getting a basic jewels? So first you need to get your PoE session ID. So follow this link, figure out what browser you have, locate your session ID. Once you have your session ID, we'll be doing this. So I have it written down, but I'll be showing it to you. You have to use the trade for these items. Click your realm, PC, this will be Mirage, and then input your session ID. So once you've done that, to get a clean representation, I like to just remove whatever jewel I want to put in. Make sure to adjust the search weights. This will be default as full DPS and EHP. You want to take those both out and just combine DPS. You'll know if it's correct when you do the find best, it only says combined DPS. Then we put a price limit of whatever we're comfortable to spending, whether it's 1 chaos, 2 chaos, 5 chaos. Let's say it's 1 chaos. And the great part about this is it will show you only 1 chaos items, and since we have asynchronous trading, this has become even better. So you can see that this provides us with a 9.3% increase in damage. And what I like to do is I'll just hover over these. I'll be looking at them. I'm looking at the percentage of damage increase and if there are any cool stats that go alongside it. So right here is a very good example, the fort one down. So it's a 9.2% increase. It's 0.1% less than the first three. But if you notice, it has strength and dexterity on it. So there are cool things you can get on here, whether it's like accuracy rating, resistances, life, mana on hit. So it is worth looking like this one right here, 13% cold resistance. So that eases up our requirements on our gear, but it is less damage. But it's only 2% less damage, which is, in my opinion, isn't a big deal. The reason we did socket empty is just so we have a clear number modifier. But let's say we put back the ghoul Seaver or whatever I had in there. The cool thing is it compares it to your jewel that you had in there. So like, let's say you're at a point where you have a little bit more currency to spend. Maybe you do the trade for these items again and search with like a higher limit and compare it to the jewels that you already have socketed in. The reason I emphasize this much, especially with an Impale build, sometimes your Impale chance isn't 100%. You can also get Impale chance on a jewel to get it to 100%. So that is an important thing to note, and why I highly emphasize you have to import yourself. And what you can do is you just import yourself on top of my POB and use the trade for these items. You have to put in your own session ID, but do set it up because it pays in dividends. It's literally how I found like this Lapis amulet, which is +1 all and increased damage while leeching. Crazy amulet, and it had an open suffix. Maybe like 30 chaos or 50 chaos at the time of buying, probably more expensive now. But this is in a league start scenario, the trade for these items is very strong. I only use it in terms of for my items is I'll do it on the gloves. You see how this has leeching and attack speed, and I'll do it on the amulet because you can get the +1 all skills and a +1 fizz, or you can get damage while leeching. For the rest of it, I'm usually just crafting or looking for gear that I can buy and upgrade. So I don't expect you guys to be like full rare gear out of campaign. No. So there are steps in progression. So here is the tree that I was using for before cluster progression. And we do take cleaving for intimidate. And we're primarily just using, like, these are examples of just using like the leveling uniques that you can get for relatively cheap, like Devotus. Ceaseless Feast may be expensive, I'm unsure. It has only recently gotten recognized. Before it was like 1 or 2 chaos because it drops from the boss prior to Eater. Carnage Heart, make sure to anoint because free damage. And then Lehoops, because Lehoops provide a lot for really cheap. At historic prices for the past 2 leagues now, they max out at 5 chaos. They're usually 1, 2, or 3 chaos. Belt of Deceiver, usually 1 chaos. Whenever you're buying uniques, make sure to take a look at the rolls and try to get well-rolled ones. And then just basic chests, you are always rushing your 6th link in progression. And then for the boots, you're just looking for life, res, movement speed if you can get it. And then we have a 700 PDPS axe, or even less. It depends on where you are at the league. See what you can buy and see what you need to improve. And this is on like 3 sockets. So now let's talk about everything else. Don't worry, I've written down all of the notes, like progression uniques. Sometimes I'll be Bear's Girdle instead of Belt of Deceiver, going to Magnate before Roslatus. I did not put in the Roslatus here because that's in our end game POB. And like I said, anoint for cheap, and then sort by combined DPS. Skip anything with skill effect duration because it just juices the numbers of Boneshatter. Doesn't feel good. In regards to the rare gear, like I said, trade for these items and then edit the search for resistance, life, or manually hover down and look at the affixes. So for the axe itself, there's multiple ways to go about this. If you want to recombinate, watch this video by Phase Plays. I personally prefer Fractured Base, and then I will just roll Essence of Contempt or Essence of Zeal. And then alternatively, sometimes you can find steals on the market. You just do the trade for these items, put a price limit, and sometimes you'll find something that's worth buying instead of crafting because it's significantly cheaper. So the boots, you can just def Essence of Zeal for the movement speed. At that point, have like fractured life or fractured resistances just to make your life a little easier if possible. Otherwise, get fractured movement speed, which I personally prefer, and then essence of choice, one that provides resistances, attributes, avoid shock if running Storm Shroud already, but usually this is league start. Storm Shroud is a little out of range. Just a thing to consider though, that you can get avoided shock on the rolls if you use an essence. Chestcraft, I like to buy a 6-link high armor base, usually a royal, but you're 84 at that point. Otherwise, you're using any 6-link, even corrupted 6-link. If you're going to use a corrupted 6-link, make sure to get the right colors. And then it's just reforge defense on a non-corrupted one, obviously, to get the Fizz PDR and other cool things, whatever you're happy with. And once you have that, stay on it. Upgrade when needed. Helmet craft is pretty much the same as Bootscraft. And then don't forget to Eldritch Implicit. So let's go to our double strike late game. So a big jump in terms of power for the Impale build is getting a Tread of Hope, but this requires you a little bit more resistances. At this point, you're also upgrading your clusters into like good triple clusters, Feed, Fuel, Smite, or even Feed, Fuel, Martial. And then the other one can be Battle Hardened, Force Multiplier, Master of Fundamentals. This gives you a bit more room because of the resistances and gives good survivability. Realistically, you could run 2 of these clusters, but at that point, you do have to keep in mind the Feed the Fury and Fearless Fight. You lose a lot of damage. At this point in time, we'll have the Roslatus. You might have a Bottle Fate, might not have Bottle Fate. This you could usually skip. I wouldn't. It's not a big deal. Lion's Roar though, for price to power, is pretty good at the start because it's relatively cheap. At this point, you are working on Watcher's Eye to fit in that Pride for the Impale last 2, which is a big damage increase. And here we're just like upgrading our items, like moving into a 1000 plus PDPS axe, getting like T1 bases like Giant Slayer, Royal Plate. So on the Royal Plate, I swapped from Determination effect or even Pride effect into Fortify, just so I can ease up the gem requirements to remove gem, like the Fortify gem, and move it into something else. Getting the non-Val Strikes skills +1, it's pretty good clear. And this, I believe I just bought. I think someone had this up and I was like, that's pretty reasonable, because you either craft it and sometimes it's not worth crafting costs. This is still our same amulet that we got from our previous build. It was already crazy. I didn't feel like upgrading it. Obviously you can get a +1/+1. Basic things, just life and res, more life and res with non-channeling, like it has the non-channeling with it. The Ruslatus had a corrupt on it when I bought it. At the time it had the 11% increased attack speed, and this is because this was during Keeper's League where there was an overabundance in uniques and the tree just spitting out things. So when I bought this I was like, maybe like 3 divines, and I was like, that's worth. Obviously you don't need the implicit. In terms of how strong this double strike skill will be, honestly everything is up in the air until we find out whether how good like Awaken Melee, Awaken Brutality, or whatever the alternative to these gems are. We know multi-strike is good because the new greater multi-strike is the only thing that changes from what I saw on the level 3 is the supported skills have 50, so it's a +3 from the 47% more melee attack speed. But that's all we know so far, and that's what they showed on their reveal. So what we're doing is just getting to this point, upgrading our build, and that's pretty much it. And we'll be slowly just farming currency, get awakened or greater multi strike first, and then the other pieces of gear for dual strike of ambidexterity, like the ephemeral edge, anathema, the overqual ES gear. It'll be a slow process because then we have fractured orbs. We don't really know how accessible all the currencies are. So they said it's buffed. We don't know all the new support gems, so there will still be things to discover and learn as the league goes on, and we even have like new rune graphs. So initial plan is we farm blight, craft, sell, profit, and then become dual strike of ambidexterity by end of week 2. Good luck on the grind. I'll be streaming once League comes out. Hopefully it's successful. Hopefully the servers don't die. I'll see you guys then.